How much should you charge for your wholesale deals? Guys, it's Rick in here with Flip with Rick, and we're going to deep dive on how to set the best pricing strategy so you get the maximum amount on your wholesale deals. But before I get into it, I need you to do me a favor. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button to continue to receive the best up-to-date information on wholesaling today from me and Zach. Pricing your wholesale deals. You're probably like wondering, Rick, I don't know how to price my deals. Do I price it too much? Do I price it too low? So let me walk you through the logic on my 20 years experience on pricing wholesaling deals. The problem is you can't start with pricing first. You have to first determine the types of strategies that are available to you for wholesaling. So number one, you already know the assignment method, okay? This method is going to be your fastest, your cheapest, your lowest cost, quickest funding deal as possible. And for that reason alone, that's where we want you to start in wholesaling. And that is called the assignment. Everybody has it available to them. And most beginners start out in this wheelhouse. The other option you have that's readily available to wholesaling is basically called wholetailing. And on wholetailing, this is a strategy where you actually have to fund the deal. So that's going to be the catch on it. So you'll have to set up your funding methods, either hard money, soft money, which is going to be private funds from either family, friends, or people you work with and associates. You can't do transactional funding because transactional funding is usually 5 to 7 days or less, mostly within 48 hours. Wholetailing, the really cool thing is you can fund it, and once you fund it, a good wholetailing is done within 90 days or less. Anything more than 90 days, it winds up in this fix and flip area, and you might wind up in 180 days, and before you know it, you're in 360 days. Doing the wholetailing strategy is any type of rehab that is basically 10 grand or less, and you can get done in 2 to 3 weeks and get the property sold in 90 days. That gives you the option to do wholetailing. I find a good mix of doing both of them. And your third option is going to be any type of creative financing. I teach in wholesaling the best way to start out finding those is to market for probates. Taking over a deceased person's mortgage, there's very little resistance, and it is a really, really easy sell to the estates. Now that you know your options, those are the three options, you can go to the next step, which is number 2. You now need to assess the condition of the property you're buying. Every property is unique. Everyone's different. If you haven't figured out that by now, I promise you, you will. What I want to do is I want to size up the property. Basically, what kind of shape is it? How much repairs? How much money is going to need to get it back up to par? And based on my skill set and my strategies, I can move forward with pricing. So number 1, we have the light rehabs. Anything that's 10K or less is what I call a light rehab. It is the perfect deal to do a wholesale, and these typically cost you 2 to 3 weeks of time, and on average it is around 60 to 90 days from the time you buy it to the time you actually cash it out, and that will usually get you the highest profit. Now, the second type of properties are what we call the intermediate rehabs. These are the rehabs that fall above 10, and it's usually below 25. The downside on these, you get great deals on them, but if you start this rehab game with them, you are going to quickly wind up in the fix and flip world, which means you have to have a crew or you have to have a very experienced contractor, and they're really in short supply these days. And that is an entirely different skill set from wholesaling. Just beware, because these medium rehabs are what suck most wholesalers to go into the fix and flip. And almost every wholesaler that winds up in the fix and flip always comes back to wholesaling because you just get tired of the drama of construction. Remember, when you do big rehab projects, there is an unknown factor, and that does not bode well for the wholesaler because we typically know what our margins are. Once you start opening up walls, dealing with budgets and contractors, there's inevitably going to be delays, and it's going to go over budget every time. Ask me how I know this because I've been in it. The real problem is the time. So a lot of you say, well, we'll get the rehab done in 30 days. Rarely, unless you're extremely experienced and you run your own crew, 30 days quickly turns into 90, 120, 180 days of just rehab and a lot more budget. These types of deals, you need to understand they are what I call trap deals, and I strongly recommend you sell them as quick as possible. The last type of deal is the heavy rehab. Anything north of 25K up to 100K. Guys, these properties you want to sell immediately. I do them via assignment because if I get locked into them, it's going to stop the other part of my wholesaling business. And that is the reason I stick to assignments and wholesaling. So now that you've assessed the property, you're looking for obviously stuff that's 10K or less, and you can do a mix of them. When I get really bad, dilapidated trash houses, I'm going to go out and I'm going to find the next step, which is step 3, is my target buyer. Okay. So you're basically going to have 3 types of target buyers. Number 1 is these are your landlords. Landlords like to buy properties in areas where there are rentals. So if you guys are in an area where it's predominantly rentals, it's mostly based on cash flow, a little bit of comps, but remember that landlord is going to focus on cash flow. So they'll take a property with repairs, but you need to find out what their limits are. Some of them don't want to go over 25 grand. Some don't want to go over 50. I like to sell landlords because it's kind of drama free and they know their numbers very, very well. The next type is going to be your fix and flip. These are the ones that we're selling the major rehabs to. All your major rehabs are going to go to a fix and flip. Occasionally go to landlord if it falls in that neighborhood. But the fix and flip, remember, the type of buyer we're looking for, all these are going to be cash buyers. But on your fix and flip, you want to look for someone that only buys like 2 or 3 properties a year. So if they're trying to impress you when you're qualifying your cash buyers, go, hey, Rick, I buy 40 or 50 properties a year, run. Because they're going to beat you up so bad on the discount that you are not going to get a good deal. Ideally, I like to find someone who does 2 to 3 properties a year. I like to find someone that has gone on MLS and they've struggled with it and they get tired of doing the realtor dance because then they're prime for a wholesaler like me. And last but not least, on your target buyers, the ones that want to do a rehab for a family member are my absolute favorite buyers. They are the fastest, they pay the most, and they give you the least amount of resistance. So that's how your target buyer kind of breaks down on it. It's really, really, really important you understand that. That's what I call, that type of buyer is what we call the semi-retail. They've tried the retail right, they can't make it work. They've tried wholesaling, they don't know how to do what we do, so they fall in the middle, which is wholesaling, which is what we're looking for. Let's move on to the pricing. So now that you know your strategies, you know the condition of the property, and you know your target cash buyer, your avatar that you're looking for, now you can price it properly. If you do not assess these 3 things first, you're just randomly going to stick a price out there and you're either going to be wrong or you're going to be right or you're going to be way off. That's how it works. So remember, assignment is the fastest way to get rid of a deal that needs a ton of rehab. There's very little time. It happens quickly. The downside is this is the least profitable method, but the least amount of headache. And that's where I'd like everybody to start out. That's where I start out. The next one we talk about is the wholesale deal. Remember, 10K or less in repairs, 2 to 3 week renovation time, and have it sold by the 90th day. And understand on the 91st day, unless it's just a minor extension for some sort of funding thing, because remember, we're looking for cash buyers, so you should be able to avoid that. But if you get a conventional buyer, 90 days, guys, you need to make sure you got the right buyer. How do you know you got the right buyer? Walk through, make the phone calls. If you're using a conventional buyer, call up the mortgage broker and beat them up and tell them you have a flipped property. Well, Rick, I don't want to tell them that. I don't want to scare them away. You better do that up front because you can't be under contract 45 days, have it fall out, and do it all over again. Make sure you vet your buyers carefully. I'm going to run you through an example, and we're going to do it 2 different ways, and I'll show you how I do my pricing. Guys, you have to keep this stuff simple. Do not complicate it. You are not looking to go on MLS and compare it with that. You can use that data, but once again, you are not a realtor. So number 1, we buy a property, we put it under contract for $100,000, and we decide to do the assignment route. Now, I'm going to give you a couple examples on it. The current value in the property, it needs about 10 grand of rehab, roughly like that. That's what they tell us. It's probably a little bit more. And as it sits right now, the property is worth about 140 to 145. If you put it on full MLS and you did the dog and pony show and waited 3 months through all the inspections, it's going to trade somewhere in there, less commissions and everything like that. So how do I price it for an assignment deal? That's real simple. Remember, you have to leave some money for a cash buyer to do an assignment. Otherwise, they're going to skip you and go straight to MLS. Okay? You can't just minus off the realtor fees and go straight to MLS listing prices because people aren't stupid. You got to leave some money in an assignment. If you guys don't, you're going to waste time. I bought it for 100. It needs about 110. So you got a slight discount. And then what you can do is add your assignment. If you got a small deal, make it work, because each deal you do, you learn. So some of you could do in $3,000 and $5,000 deals. I don't want you to make realtor checks. I want you to make wholesaler checks. So it's important that you fight for the most amount of money. So on a deal like this, I'm probably going to price it right at like around 130, because if they're selling 145 to 140 on the market with a realtor, 130 to 135 puts me in the ballpark, and that gives me at least a $20,000 assignment fee. Okay? Gives you some room to negotiate, but how do you know if you got the right price? If it goes under contract fast and someone wants to do an assignment, you probably undersold the property a little bit. Now, good news is you can still bid it up. You can get down to the two final people and ask for their final and best. Remember, you need a solid cash buyer. You do not need all the drama that goes with it. So in that instance, we make 20 grand. Now, let's say we take that exact same deal and we do a wholesale. Rick, how are you going to price that one? Not a problem at all. My rule for pricing the difference between a wholesale is I want to double my profit, because remember, I got a lot more costs going on with it. If I can take that 20 and turn it into 40, I'll go ahead and figure out how to fund it with my private funding or hard money. You guys have to establish how you do that. And then keep in mind, you're going to have additional closing costs. You're going to have to throw at least another 10 grand in there, because you got two sets of closing costs and you got to pay a buyer's agent. And then keep in mind, we have to do rehab. Now, we said 10, it's going to wind up being 15. I'm telling you, every time it winds up being 15. But that 15 is smart spent money, because you're going to get it done in how much time? 2 to 3 weeks. You have to stay on budget, because you only have 90 days to sell the house from start to finish. So it's important, whoever you have do the work, they understand your timeline and they hold to it. If they can't, run. We got 100 into the purchase. We put 15 into it. We're on 15, and we got about 10 grand of cost in there. So we're into about 125. Now I fixed it up, and the realtors told me, this is an exact deal I just did, told me you could probably put on the market at 169.9 and get something north of 160 to 165. Okay? So roughly doing that type of math, if I vet the right buyer and do that, I basically make between 40 and 45,000. Voila, that's how I doubled it. Now, if I could only take 20 grand to 25 grand, I don't do the wholesale. It's not worth the risk, because it's not a guarantee you're going to make that number. If I know I'm going to double it and say I only make 35,000, that's still 15,000 more than the assignment for basically an additional 2.5 months of time. This is a simple strategy to price your wholesale deals. Remember, if you're doing wholesale, you should be able to double your assignment. And guys, you are not limited to doubling it. I've gotten 2 to 3, 4, 5, even 10 times the amount I've gotten on a wholesale deal versus an assignment, because I had the right property, I had the right strategy I was doing it, and I found the right cash buyer. A combination of these three will give you the maximum return on your wholesale deals. Hopefully this video will help you price it. Guys, let me know in the comments if I'm helping you price yours. What's your strategy? Tell me what your formula is. I would love to hear it. Guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Smash that subscribe button to continue to receive the absolute best wholesaling information on the internet today from myself and Zach. Guys, this is Rick Ginn, Flip with Rick. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.